my favorite things to do together, besides fuck.
All right, I know where to start. We're going to get right into the juicy business. We're going to get right into the juicy business.
We're not fucking around, negation acknowledged.
We're fucking around and finding out. All right. Tell me what it was like to receive the reflection of our relationship mirroring my relationship with my mom, our unconscious behavior, me being someone that was and is to a certain degree still looking for someone to be like a channel for my negative energy and through that finding soothing. Tell me about that.
Well, it was uncomfortable. Bill called me forward. So this is something in myself that I've observed in a different way. And when you brought it up from your own perspective, it was like, okay, now this thing, I can't ignore it. I can't avoid it. It's here. It's being brought up. And side note, Bill is great at bringing up the uncomfortable. But what came through for me is that I tend to put aside my own needs and desires for the sake of like collective comfort, even if it means repressing something that I want or if I think differently. It's the part of me that's conflict avoidant and people pleaser, and it is also rooted in codependency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also rooted in, like, even deeper than that, abandonment wounding. For there's a deeply rooted fear that if I am not appeasing and fawning and giving everything that I have, even if I don't have it to give, that I will lose somebody, in this scenario you, or that I won't be enough. And I've been working with my coach in a multitude of ways on this same pattern, so it makes sense that now it's coming up to be applied and navigated in real time in my relationships, another initiation. But
Can I say something quick?
Yeah.
Just to contextualize further. Basically, my dynamic with my mom, and God bless you, Mom, and we were all doing the best we could with the knowledge and awareness we had. And essentially, when I was a child, my primary mode of being was to utilize her as my emotional punching bag when I would be uncomfortable. And I would basically do my best to find the path of least resistance to offload my darkness onto others. And that's something that became deeply integrated into the way that I was, and there's still remnants of that. And it was something I've thought about before as we've been building our relationship, is this codependent sort of way of interacting still unfolding. And I would ask this question to myself here and there, and it's hard for me to tell because I'm not sure if, my behavior, if the way you're responding to it is in alignment for sure with you, because a lot of the times this sort of behavior is out of direct awareness for me as an individual. So it being primarily unconscious and it being the shadow side of my inner child. So I forget exactly what we were experiencing. I think it was just a multitude of small things because I've been struggling a lot since we've been on the trip together. And the gunshots were very distracting. So yeah, a multitude of situations, small things that would come up where I would see this being mirrored in our relationship. And I just brought it to light, essentially, just to explore it in the car with you. And it's interesting how these things happen because psychologists and stuff talk about this sort of thing where we attract a partner that is similar to the dynamic we had with our mother, or in your case, father. And it's not black and white, of course. And this is more nuanced. It's not like a primary mode of being for either of us, but it comes up. And this is what we get to, the work we get to do together as a team.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the parental aspect of it. My dad being somebody who, when I was very young, he was and is mentally unstable. And if he were in like a more fragile mental state, and I would be too loud or really hyper or like distracting to him, he would react from a place of anger, sometimes even physically lashing out at me, most of the time verbally. And so when I recognize that there is some sort of upheaval in the emotional vibe, I tend to like try to shrink myself and find ways to bring peace back to the container. Even if it's like self-sacrificial or like you said, not fully in alignment with me. And to be like called forward in that way opened a lot of doors for me to recognize, like, one, it's okay to like disagree. It's okay for me to be energetic and expressed. And what's really beautiful about this container is I feel safe enough. I feel safe with you in a way where like I can experience these components of myself that I previously thought to be annoying or too much, and just like allow it to be what it is without shame spiraling or feeling that it's going to cause you to love me any less. And that can be challenging sometimes because I get swept up in the story that it could impact your level of love for me. But it is constantly proven wrong time and time again when you open up in this way and call me forward, and we're able to dive deeper to the roots of why we behave this way. So
Yeah. I love that we can just open up these doors in a regulated place. It's so cool that we don't point fingers. It's just getting curious and approaching it with love and care and tenderness. And me being someone that's incredibly hard on myself, or I experience that rather from time to time. Someone who's a high achiever and wants to move forward and evolve rapidly, someone that's looking to charge ahead. It's really nice to take our time with these things and to be with someone who can hold it, who can hold that and has the nervous system capacity to do so. It's interesting. It's a gift.
yeah,
It's a gift.
I mean, navigating conflict as well with somebody who's regulated, even, or when both of us are a little dysregulated, finding the little, I mean, all couples experience this, even in intimate friendships, where like two dysregulated people finding ways to like nitpick the other, or like come to the container from a place of like anger. There was a time on our trip yesterday, we were on a hike and I was in a dysregulated state from the jump. And this would also be a good place to talk about like our individual needs in the morning, like routine, and like having enough time to ourselves to like do the journaling, do the breathwork, do the movement to move our energy. So when we come back together, we're both in that regulated place. But we jumped into the day and got started, and
5 a.m. start time. 5 a.m. right out the gates. Get in the car. We're going.
My little inner brat was just present, and we were heading on to this hike that ended up being, it was beautiful. It was incredible. A lot of uphill, and my body was sore. And there was a lot going on internally for me in my mind. I was anxious or experiencing anxiety about some situations at home. My trip is coming to an end, so there's another like transition happening. And all of these things were kind of festering in my mind, and I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to bring the collective vibe down. So I let these things fester and get really big, to the point of when, upon realizing the hike was going to be more challenging than I thought it was, and I didn't have as much information because I wasn't like listening the night before. And
One thing quick, it was funny how before the hike, we, instead of being in our hearts, we were in our egos, and it became about who's right or who's
yep.
wrong. That's what was happening for me. I don't know if that's what was happening for you. And it's interesting how we resort to our lower nature without really recognizing it. And for some reason, even when you do recognize it, there's still a part of you that's like, I'm right, and this is the truth of the matter. And yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
That was just an interesting aspect of that experience.
The ego. Yeah, the wanting to be right, that pattern comes up a lot for me. Well, not a lot, but at least once a day.
Yeah.
With you, especially, I mean, there was something that I had wanted to communicate, but I wasn't doing it from a place of compassion. There was like an air of blame that I was projecting onto you, which caused for you to then respond to me in that way. Like, that's what I was opening the doorway to. I wasn't opening the door to it from a compassionate place where I was like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Can we do it this way next time? It was like, coming to you upset. And then from that point on, being rather snippy for a while into the hike, which just continued to perpetuate this this conflict, which was resolved. You know how it was resolved? I don't think it was like conscious, but through your humor, your ability to like be silly. And
What
like,
did I do specifically?
we were you busted out these microphones for one thing, and had us start trying to riff on the mountaintop. And you were just like expressing yourself. It was just the way you were joking around, the way you were just like making the most absurd sounds from the mountaintop. And just like, it's funny because at first I like am almost irritated by your joy because I want to be the victim.
Misery loves company.
Exactly.
And I can say that from the person that's been miserable and attempted to drag you down. It goes back to how I would treat my mom. And really, I just think that's what comes through within the space of being human. You're just, for some reason, like, you want someone to be there with you. And it is, you think that's some sort of solution.
It's not.
It's not.
But luckily, your joy and your humor and your ability in the moment to find what was magical in the moment was contagious. There was a certain point where I was like, all right, I'm going to surrender and let it go and let it be messy, the letting go, and come back to wholeness with you.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That was an epic hike.
It was.
Mount Hood is dope. We finally got to see the colossal being that is Mount Hood.
She was hiding.
She was hiding the whole time. We were camping by Trillium Lake. It was cloudy and rainy. We did get to see it for the first time the night before during the full moon. Or was it 2 nights before?
It was, the night before.
It was the night before. I was like, is that it? Okay, yeah, that's Mount Hood.
Holy shit.
And then we saw the potentiality of being able to see it the next day. So I was like, we got to go do a hike. And there was an awesome hike right by where we were camping. So, yeah, it's interesting to reflect on where we're showing up in ways that aren't serving us as individuals and as a couple. And what would you say is the primary takeaway and how we can integrate more effectively navigating that situations like that where we both are dysregulated, we have a disagreement, we start to make it about who's right or wrong instead of what can we learn from this and how can we come back to love and presence and being in the moment and enjoying this experience, because we only have so much time together and before you go home back to Milwaukee.
Right. Yeah, and that factor alone has, I feel, been a huge tool I've been able to utilize in coming back to surrender and connection, is the short duration of time we have, like letting go of the little things. But to answer your question, I would note Gay Hendricks' Journey to Co-Commitment. What is it called? It's a book. It's the Journey to Co-Commitment.
That's it, right?
No, it's Conscious Loving.
Conscious Loving.
Conscious Loving.
That's it.
And there's a part that I keep bringing this up, but the microscopic truth. And, you know, I actually wrote down these 7 questions that we can ask ourselves and each other when these things come up. But what I'm talking about is the microscopic truth, which, when I'm being honest with myself and honest with you, I would be able to say, and I'm able to say, this is what I'm experiencing. Maybe if there's a fear involved in my experience, for example, I'm not feeling heard, and I need us to take a minute to like look each other in the eyes so I can express exactly how I'm feeling without blaming, but how I'm feeling and what I need, because sometimes we need co-regulation.
And that's a beautiful example of a reflection versus a projection. Instead of you're doing this and you're doing that, I feel this way. This is what's occurring within me, and I want to make it known so that whatever's there the air can be cleared and we can just move forward instead of resonating in this space of butting heads for however many hours, which I'm sure for a lot of people, this turn, they get in an argument, goes on for whatever amount of time that they're bickering at each other, playing the blame game, pointing fingers, instead of, what the point I was going to make is that people will have arguments like this and they'll let it impact their mood and their ability to love each other for multiple days at a time, versus getting real with what's occurring within you, taking responsibility, taking a look at that. What part am I playing in this? Because everything's co-created, right? The situation's happening because you're both there. It's not a singular, isolated thing. Both people are playing a part in what's there. And yeah, the goal is to always come back to love and co-creating, responsibility, basic tools.
Yeah. And yeah, sometimes it even comes down to some sort of like unserving story you're wanting to confirm, like when the past bleeds into the present, past relationship experiences bleeding into current relationships, where I may have a story that, he doesn't listen to me, or he doesn't care about what I have to say, or all of these stories that I'm trying to confirm through my projection, when I'm creating the ground for you to not be able to hear me or not be able to see where I'm coming from because I'm coming from a place that's discompassionate or disingenuine. The questions, shall I share them? There are 7 questions that Gay Hendricks gives in the Journey to Co-Commitment when navigating conflict. 1 is, how do I feel? 2 is, what do I want? 3 is, how is the past coloring my present? 4 is, what am I getting out of staying stuck? That's a huge one. 5, what do I need to say? 6, what agreements have I broken? That one's a little more obscure, but when we come into co-commitment, there's agreements we make to each other, like honesty and full transparency. And 7, how can I be of service? And we didn't use these in our conflict, but
you mentioned them once that those are solid for getting clear on a path forward, and in implementing rudimentary basic questions so it creates clarity.
Yeah, it's a new tool.
Yeah.
I like the question, what am I getting out of staying stuck? It's like, we do a lot of work with Unlifted in the story work realm, and like language, exactly. What am I getting out of staying stuck? What am I getting out of not communicating? I'm able to stay hidden to avoid vulnerability and truly being seen. I get to play small and protect my ego, and I get to hold on to this idea that I'm like projecting this like perfection when that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Go us. Go us.
Go on.
And guess what, guys? Today's the best day ever.
Today's the best day ever.
And yesterday was the best day ever.
Ooh, that was another way that you helped to transform the energy yesterday on the hike. Bill just started blasting off with, "This is the best day ever," over and over again. And when you say that, like the vibrational frequency of even saying that out loud uplifts the mood.
Awesome. We're going to switch gears, and this is a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about. And I'm sure you're fine with this because you like to go deep and go into things and be a rock star. So I'm going to present a rock star question to you. How was that orgasm last night? On the topic of blasting off.
Bill assisted me in reaching orgasm within like 3 minutes last night.
Which doesn't happen often.
And, you know, for the sake of being fully transparent, I don't often reach that even in my own self-pleasure practice that quickly. And as I've spoken about on I think the Relation Station, definitely on my own podcast, I have a very colored history of sexual abuse. So there are, it's so exciting being in connection to you and being able to explore intimacy the way that we do and the opening and the trust required to even reach orgasm or full presence in sex. So last night we engaged in movement. Originally we were separately engaging in these practices together. It felt really good. We were in the flow state. And
we smoked some jazz cabbage.
We did. And It opened up my heart and
AKA
my pussy. And Bill had gotten out his fire poi, and I had never seen him play with them before. We asked our hip camp host if it was okay for him to spin them. Got the go ahead, and there's something really arousing and attractive and magical about getting to see you like in your flow state, like getting to see you performing, especially with fire, because it's so like, I mean, you have to be like really tuned in to the prop that you're using, and just being able to witness you in that state just like allowed even more opening to occur for me. So when the time came to engage sexually, I was just like wide open.
The foreplay began with before there was even physical touch.
The foreplay began before the play.
It's an energetic dance.
Yeah.
And to be completely transparent, my libido has been suffering because of porn addiction, porn habit, masturbation, using it as a soothing tactic while out here. Because a lot comes out. A lot comes up when you're living nomadically, and it's the complete opposite way of living that you are used to. And I've got a toolbox of techniques to help me avoid really looking at what's going on and finding out a legitimate, sustainable, long-term solution. And porn can be one of those. Masturbation really, you know, it's you're hitting that dopamine button, that pleasure button, and it's a way to eject you from the present moment. So my babe here, she got me going. I was exhausted because we did that 8-mile hike to check out Mount Hood. Friggin' awesome. We woke up at 5. You know, got to bed 10:30, 11. Had to drive 3 hours or so to our camp spot. Of course, that comes with the process of setting everything up. And, you know, we broke things down, set everything up here at the camp spot we're at now. So I was literally drained. And, you know, for a little bit, I felt like I was forcing, you know, my sexual connection to you. And it felt uncomfortable. And I didn't even really communicate that. I just had mentioned how exhausted I was, and I felt that, you know, I felt some shame around not feeling, you know, totally sexually driven towards you. And shame isn't helpful in that scenario whatsoever. And I know that you love me no matter what, for where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what's occurring inside. If sex is not going to happen, that's totally all right. I felt pressure because we have only so much time here, and sexual connection is incredibly important to our relationship and relationships, period. So yeah, thankfully we had this experience leading up to going into the tent, connecting, and there was like ebbs and flows of me feeling off and on and stuff like that. And then something was just lit within me at a certain point, and I just turned into a savage, and we went in.
Do you have any recognition of what it was that helped shift you?
I don't know. I just my divine masculine just full force awakened, and I was in the energy of dominance, and I tapped into a reservoir of infinite energy at that point. I don't know what it was. A switch was flipped. You were a part of that. I was a part of that too. It just happened, and I was exhausted, like I said, and then that completely changed in that moment, and I was something else. It was so healing, that whole experience with you. I don't know. We haven't talked about sex on a podcast, have we?
No, not yet. But here we are.
That's cool. That's fun, because getting to, vocalize all of that, it really just helps me contemplate a lot, that all that's been occurring within me surrounding sexually interacting with you, and how negatively impactful porn has been, with supporting my libido in our relationship. Yeah. That's the glue, baby. Well, actually, it's the grease. Paul Chek says, sex is either glue or grease. So glue could keep you stuck in a codependent relationship, or it's the grease. It greases the wheels. It lubricates everything. It supercharges the whole deal. And yeah, it's medicine.
Yeah,
it's medicine.
Truly.
And the man doesn't want you to know that. That's for sure. They want you to, think your penis is small, and that sex is bad, and don't show your naked body, and don't talk about sex with anyone at all. Keep it in the dark. That's gross. It's like, what? Come on. Everyone does it.
Yeah. And most people have shame around it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know much about sex magic, but there's a lot of information out there on it, and I have a couple friends that I've heard talk about it on their pages and stuff like that, and how, like, holistically healing it can be, and full spectrum healing it can be, and how synergistic it can be. I mean, it's the core evolutionary driver for everything. So that's an interesting thing to acknowledge and learn how to harness as a practice.
Yeah, and there's work we do together in our sexual container, and there's work we do separately in preparation.
Yeah. And I haven't been doing my work, so yeah, it's hard.
Well, this is the work.
It's hard. It's when you started jerking off in third grade, your first orgasm in third grade, you find porn like 2 years later, the internet's coming online, you have access to all of it, anything you'd want to see. And you start pressing those buttons at that age. You build a habit around it, and you're jerking off every day as a young boy, essentially.
Yeah.
That there's unwinding to do after that, So
Well, porn is not a how-to guide. It doesn't show the aspects of sex that are present that may be like a little cringy or like awkward, which always comes up. It doesn't show, more often than not, the amount of like foreplay required to even open a woman up. And
jackhammer, just go jackhammer.
I haven't watched a lot of porn, but I do know that it shows more like, the woman is the submissive, and like while I love being submissive, to the masculine and open to receive, it shows more like the subordinate nature of like the woman being shown as just like the receptacle for
destroyed.
Yeah, like how often do we even see a woman's orgasm in porn? Because usually the goal is just to like come on her and get the cum shot, and then it's game over. And you know, as a woman, I've had a lot of my own like shame to work through, not only because of the sexual violence I've endured, but also just because of how I was raised to perceive sex. I wasn't raised to like talk about it. I wasn't raised in a way where I was told that it was even okay to want it. I was raised around the story of shame. And, you know, we don't have to talk about the Catholic Church, but that's definitely a part of it for a lot of people. But I would love to elaborate for the listeners on my self-pleasure practice, how I've been able to work through some of my own shame shadow when it comes to sex and intimacy, is when I am engaging with myself with my dildo or my vibrator or both, or just my hands.
The word dildo is the funniest word ever. I don't know why. Is that just me?
I will take a mirror and watch myself and stare directly into my yoni, my pussy. And I will engage with myself in a way where I'm tuning into the subtle energies I'm experiencing, the subtle feelings. So I'll really take my time with sensation and opening up throughout all of the inside of my vagina and engaging with myself in a way where I am fully feeling the experience. It's not just like a race to get to orgasm, because I notice even in sex, I feel like this pressure, I put this pressure on myself to reach orgasm when that's not the goal. The goal is to feel into pleasure and to enter that portal of full connection to myself and my partner. And I've been engaging with myself in this way for a while, and it definitely helped me a lot in this most recent sexual experience with you, Bill, because I've been tuning into the subtleties of sensation. So when I'm receiving you, I can more fully feel all of it.
Yeah, it's like 10% me, 90% you.
Well,
because you're responsible for how you cultivate into climax, you know? I mean, I'm there to aid, and it adds another layer, and it's essentially like a psychedelic experience, like we were talking about the other night, or it was the second time we had sex on this trip at an Airbnb we were at, and basically I was like, yo, your body felt like my body. Your pleasure was my pleasure. And there's this union experience that comes with a sacred sex practice, and there's body awareness that comes with that, and being able to be present in your body. So everyone listening to this, we are on the journey back to sacred conscious sex and what that can do for us as human beings in terms of evolving, and just one of the most epic aspects of being human. And anytime I watch porn and masturbate, and this isn't black and white, you can have a sacred sex practice with porn. Anytime I do that, I'm desacredizing sex. Because when I do it, I'm using it as a coping mechanism and just as a way to press a button that feels good, just to have an experience that feels good. And I totally could change that, and that's my work with it, so that I can, you know, climb the ladder of how trying to find the words to, you know, basically doing this work, coming home to, you know, it being about connection. It expands so many aspects of me and my ability to connect as a whole.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so vulnerable about this aspect of your life.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, most men for sure are hooked on porn, at least to some degree. And it's interesting because, you go down the rabbit hole so deep and you do it for so many years. And I'm not like a chronic masturbator that masturbates 3 times a day. I mean, at the most it would be once a day when it's, I'm in that place of codependency with my sexual relationship with myself, my relationship to sex, period. I totally forgot where I was going with that. That's unfortunate. I lost the thread.
Well, it's like an easy pathway to pleasure. It's like when you said connection, I thought of the saying, connection is the opposite of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
There's many ways that we can receive pleasure, and some take a lot more work and consistent effort to reach. Some of it requires like the utmost presence. Like when you're in nature, you can experience orgasmic like bliss the more you pay attention and like allow yourself to be immersed in the elements that are around you. And we have our easier pathways to pleasure, like masturbation. I've definitely used it as a tool for that as well. I'm not fucking perfect. But it's just like anything else, like when I'm feeling some kind of way, my little addictions will come into play. I'll turn to tobacco or nicotine or some sort of mind-altering substance to reach this pleasure state. And what I recognized it to be for me, not only is it an easier pathway that I know will get me the quote-unquote results that I'm looking for, but it also like allows me, coming back to the question of what do I get out of staying stuck, is I don't have to trust myself or my environment to bring me to pleasure naturally. I don't, like, when I'm not sourcing it from within, that's when I turn to things that are quick and easy, simple fix, but not regenerative, not long-lasting forms of pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and addiction, something we've been talking a lot about, and it's really vulnerable for me because I made a post about Groundhog's Day experiences, like, and how the majority, that's, a lot of times that's life for them. It's like waking up in the morning, hitting that alarm clock, feeling groggy, pulling out your phone, scrolling Facebook, Instagram, whatever you're going to do, to take you out of, just being in the day right away. Doing that for a little bit, going to make a cup of coffee before you even drink water, or, sit down with yourself and just, launching yourself into the day, into a job you don't like, getting home, cracking a few beers, watching your favorite show, masturbating to some porn, if you're going to go that route, and then going to bed and waking up and doing, generally speaking, the same exact thing, and having this sort of cycle repeat on a daily basis. And on the topic of addiction, that's where I feel I'm at, and it bounces around to different things: cannabis, kratom, masturbation, caffeine. Those are the 4 tenets of where I get to work on my relationships with. And it's there's shame around it for me because I one of the first podcasts I did on the road, I talked about how I was abusing kratom essentially, and how I was gonna create a better relationship with it, and I did for a short period of time, and then I fall back into it. So it's, just to even be bringing it up on a public format, in a public format like this, and sharing it with the world, it's like there's shame around it because I'm still within it and I still am working through it. And a lot of the times I feel like I haven't made any progress. And right now I get to acknowledge myself for the progress I have made. Almost completely letting go of alcohol and cocaine and using psychedelics to party and stuff like that. And I used to jerk off a lot more, that's for sure. And yeah, there's just still so much work to be done. And if you're listening to this and you're experiencing a similar thing, you're not alone. We're together. We're together in this, and our society is designed to, our way of living, our current structure, our current format of living is designed to push us to operate this way, because most of the people around us are doing it, and it's just become what's normal, doing these things and it being integrated into daily life and not really asking any questions and building awareness around why we're doing these things and what is it that we're running from. So that's just a reflection on some things that have been coming up for me with addiction and coping tactics, things that don't truly serve me and really just keep me complacent. And it's almost, for me, it's like a form of procrastination, which I know we talked about, because there's so much happening for me in life right now, and complete identity shift, career shift, stepping into a new role, connecting with new communities. And that's also something that I get to have gratitude for, because although the pressure feels heavy, the changes are happening, the shift is occurring, I'm taking the steps forward, and I fall down and I'll continue to fall down, and I continue to get back up and take those steps forward to actually be more integrated as a person with all these different behaviors that show up. And yeah, what am I gaining from staying stuck in these patterns, these cycles? Not really anything. Honestly, when I look at the grand scheme of what I want to do, who I want to be, where I want to go, what kind of life I want to have, it's just prolonging the process of reaching that. Doing these things, continuing to mindlessly consume whatever it is. Could be, food's a thing too for me. And yeah, what's there for you, babe, with addiction and relationship to substances? You shared some really great stuff with me right before we got on the mics here.
Well, first, to reflect, I like to, when I'm recognizing these patterns return in myself, I like to ask myself what it is that I actually need. Like, what hole is it that I'm actually needing to fill? And more times than not, it's like I am looking for love, and I'm looking for connection, like real connection. And it's easier, quote unquote, easier to turn to substances. On this trip, I picked up smoking tobacco again. I've been more clean than not from it for a while. I've been using nicotine pouches occasionally, but had managed to quit the smoking habit. And there's something about like being on vacation, or like, going to a music festival, or, like there being some sort of special occasion where I'll like allow myself to have it. And then it's just a slippery slope. Like, I easily could have been, night one, like I'm going to have a cigarette, some tobacco, I roll my own, make it ceremonial and connect with the plant. But instead I am just using it as like
Buy
a
a pack
filler.
of Pall Malls.
Like, no. Like a filler, like a in the between moments. Like, I recognize in myself, like, I'm looking for like to be constantly stimulated. I feel a lot of my like early life and into my adulthood, I was like constantly in chaos, whether it was in my family or self-generated after my family wasn't really in the picture so much, to now that like there's really nothing actively in my life happening that is like painful or harmful or chaotic, but there's like this little subconscious part of myself that wants to continue to create that experience internally to like confirm that story that like, I'm not safe, I can't connect to my body, whatever. But recently, I've been really good with substances. I definitely overindulge sometimes, or indulge when the moment isn't necessarily calling for it. But in this stage of my life, there's just an understanding I have that what's really required of me is to accept the part of myself that wants to feel pleasure, and accept the part of myself that does turn to substances rather than the previous modus of operation I was running on, which was to shame myself and to tell myself this story that I'm like still a victim to my addiction. Like I don't really repeat that story anymore. I don't consume substances to the point of having a negative impact on my life or the lives of people around me, and maybe my use will create some internal chaos, like I'll overconsume caffeine and enter a state of dysregulation or whatever the case may be. But I know what my limits are now, and I know when I've gone past them, and I know when to just like enjoy myself. So the acceptance piece is super essential, like not repping the message that there's something wrong with me, or there's like, you know, this huge demon that I have, and just like allowing myself to be who I am and to enjoy the many pleasures that life has to offer without always resorting to substance for that. There's no use in shame. It's not there is no component to yourself that you can kill, only reframe relationship to. So that's my work, and I'll continue to work on it until the pattern is released. But
She is the art and the artist.
it's true. The
So are you.
hardest.
So am I.
Yes.
The heartist.
The hardest.
She is the heart
So,
and the heartist. Ooh, that's good. We are the heart and the heartist. Heartist. Shout out to all my heartists out there. You beautiful human beings.
with that being said, what are some ways that don't involve anything external that we can reach flow state and pleasure? What are the high hitters for you?
There's so much. There's so much. I'm getting cold. Oh yeah, ice baths.
Ice baths. That's a great one.
I love that.
Moving
Spirit
through
just
resistance.
launched that through my system. That's wonderful. I love the cold. I love getting cold and how it shifts my energy with such a small commitment of time. And really, it's just a matter of moving my body into whatever pool, river, tub it is to get that stimulus, to create that natural dopamine release, which lasts hours and therefore totally shifts, how I'm, even if I'm feeling good, I'm like, of course, ice bath, it's gonna do great things for me and give me momentum to create and be in my best self. And then aside from that, it just always comes back to the basics. A good night's rest, bare feet on the ground, sun on the skin, shirt off, going for a walk, moving my body, getting my blood moving, getting my heart rate up, breathing deep. Let's take a deep breath. That's good stuff. Vocalizing, sharing my words with myself or with others, and this has been such a valuable tool for me. It is primarily for me to have these conversations because the dots get connected and they stay connected. The strength of those lines that are connected between the dots becomes much more robust, and there you have integration, my friends. And it works better for me than journaling. Journaling's another wonderful outlet for feeling better, for creating a state shift. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, all of those are hard hitters. The cold is one that I just recently opened myself to this year. I love it for the reason that it is a great training ground for navigating resistance and trusting yourself and surrendering. So it's a great practice for me in that way because surrender is is a finicky piece of what is required to fully enjoy your experience as a human. Dancing for sure. I noticed that there's been a couple of days on this trip where like I wasn't doing any slow flow movement or dancing, and I start to feel like sticky and stuck and disconnected from my body. So dance is a huge one for me. Walking, journaling, and connecting.
It's all about connecting.
Connecting with strangers.
It's all about connecting.
Whether it be like a short conversation or like getting to meet our friend in the woods, Laura, or our friend on the beach, Cameron, on this trip. Like these opportunities to like initially I'll notice myself wanting to turn away from connection, or like when I feel a pull towards somebody I don't know yet, like there's a part of me that feels almost stubborn about it. Like, no, that's scary. But the second I'm there and I'm in it, again, it's like I get to like give myself that example of trust in myself to open my heart and to open myself to expanded awareness with somebody new. And it also gives me that example of trust in others, like recognizing that people are like generally good and great and have like all of these amazing stories and insights to share. And when I'm open to it, I get to receive even more keys and tools that I've been looking for inadvertently. Like Laura, we met this woman in the woods in Washington, and she was just like a walking permission slip to be like your most true, authentic, expressed self without worrying about what others may think of you. Like she was just, I felt like a permission slip for me. She was very like interested in the woo, like the spiritual, her connection to source. And I have some like personal barnacles around that, around seeming like, which is funny because like I practice Reiki, you know, I'm like tuned into energy work, but there's a part of me that almost is avoidant of the like language and magic of the woo, because I'm worried that the general population is going to think I'm full of shit.
It's because it's stigmatized.
Right.
And people aren't ready to be open like that because they're totally stuck in my body's chemical soup and we're just on a flying rock and, you know, basically connected to purely material. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I worked through that too. And what I will say about all of this is that through the addictions, it's an attempt at connection, and it may be short-lasting rather. And unfortunately, what goes up must come down. So there's going to be an impact on yourself, negatively speaking, when it comes to anything you do to avoid or just mindless pleasure seeking, because there's going to be a neurological tax with over consuming caffeine, consuming too many cigarettes, whatever mind altering substance you want to talk about. And in the end, almost all of our behavior is oriented towards calling in more connection. So it's a matter of recognizing what truly creates lasting, sustainable, real connection that builds us up and helps us move forward with ourselves, and all phenomenal tools. We have so much available to us. It's just a matter of taking the step, a single step forward, whether that's taking a deep breath right when you wake up, or 5 deep breaths instead of looking at your phone, or drinking, 32 ounces of water instead of a coffee, or getting a run in, doing a meditation, getting still. It's paramount to build ourselves around that so that we can be in a place of love, be happy, feel good, and just start small. Just implement one thing. If you are feeling like you're at the mercy and a slave to whatever poor habits it is, I'm not a master at habit change by any means. All I know is that I've thankfully, thank God, stumbled into the teachings of so many wonderful wisdom keepers and teachers that have shown me the way and have helped me, have illuminated different practices and methods of being that actually make me whole. And on the topic of wholeness, and then I'll be done talking, health, the old etymology of health actually means whole. So if you're going to pick one target to aim at wholeness and orient yourself around that state, being complete in the heart and in love, and it will always be an ongoing journey.
Beautiful. Wholeness. What do you think is what do you think are the key components to being whole?
The main thing that comes to mind is knowing another and being known by that other as well. All it takes is one person. Ideally, you want a community of people that know you and that you know, and so that you can be yourself and be you. That's the ultimate goal for me. So what I would say wholeness is just being yourself and feeling safe in being yourself, and that's a craft. That's a craft. And there's levels to that, right? I mean, the one great step, and I talk about this a lot, an individual can take towards wholeness is finding people that where you can be that. You can be you. You can be fully you, and you can present it all and they can hold it, and vice versa. You can hold it for them, and it's a resonance thing. So that's mainly what comes to mind for me.
As you've been on the road, going from city to city, place to place, how do you connect to community when you're in places where you don't know anybody?
There's a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of the times it can start by just opening up a conversation. What I've found, though, primarily speaking, is that when I've needed connection the most to, community or just another individual, it's just presented itself. It's just showed up. It's just showed up at my doorstep when things were the hardest and I needed it the most. And there hasn't really been too much active pursuit for it. I have friends I've connected with while out here, and that's more, me deciding to show up in physical proximity with these people and connect with them. And that there's been a lot of that too. Also a lot of just the universe just plopping awesome people in front of me and getting to hang out with them, and just we're vibing. It's good. We get to share our stories and what we're up to, traveling. Everybody has a different situation for what they're up to, and it's really cool to see that. So that's primarily how it's been for me.
Cool.
On the road so far.
Lots of opportunities.
Always.
Weaving the web.
Infinite opportunities, my friends. I keep turning my head towards the mic. It's so unnecessary. It's funny. You hear me?
I was like, is it there?
We got the new Rode Wireless Go 2 mics, and they're awesome. And they're so good because I've been hiking, doing all sorts of wild hikes, exploring, adventuring in the wilderness as I've been on my trip, exploring the Rockies, different national parks and stuff like that. And I needed something more compact to bring with me. And we have officially unlocked a new framework for doing pods with these incredible tools. So thank you, Rode. And babe, what a great conversation.
Yeah.
You crushed it.
So did you.
Go us.
Go us.
We crushed it.
We are the crushing.
We are the crush. We are what crushes. We create the crushing.
We create it with
we
love.
we decide to create, and then we take action and do the thing. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I hope y'all, whatever your heart feels called to, you do the exact same thing. The world wants your art. The world needs your art. The world needs you.
We only get one of you.
There's only one of you. There's only one of me. There's only one of Beth. And with that being said, do you have any offerings or workshops or anything you want to plug before we get off the mics here?
Yeah. As of right now, there are workshops in mind. The action steps are being taken to bring those into fruition. So follow me on Instagram if you would like to stay up to date on those, whether you're local or not. There's going to be many options for working with me in container, both in person and online. I also am offering one-on-one coaching sessions. As a self-love and personal power coach, I believe that we all have similar stories in our head that keep us stuck in our shit mindset. And I believe that one of the keys to becoming unstuck and becoming free is learning to accept and love all aspects of yourself wholeheartedly. And I've got some tools in my tool belt to help us all unlock that power of choice and reframe. It starts internally, and then we get to watch our lives unfold into the masterpiece that we know it can be. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
What about you, Bill?
You know, I haven't formulated with words what I do offer. What I will say is that if you're curious to explore what a one-on-one working coaching relationship could look like in terms of finding out what it is you want to pursue, and then taking actual steps forward to create that thing that wants to come out of you, that's inside of you and is waiting to be materialized. Let's talk. Hit me up on Instagram, Wild Bill Wellness, and it's the best day ever. We're about to have the best night ever. And I trust that if you're listening to this, it will be the same for you. We love you.
We love you.
I love you, babe.
I love you, Bill.
I love you.
I love you.
We love you.
We love you.
And we love us.
We are the love.
We are the love. All right.
And Mike's drop.